Empty the chamber on them. And how do you do that? First 6 seconds, point A to point B, everything you got. Everything you got. Turn that shit up. Let's go.
Welcome to the morning scoop for Wednesday, July 20th. We have a jam-packed show. I'm with my co-host Nevadabuck today. We have a lot to talk about. Training camp is winding down. NFL teams are actually starting to report as of today. So a lot of rookies reported today to camp. Veterans report this weekend. So football is here, ladies and gentlemen. It's been an incredibly fast summer. Ohio State is kind of in the final stages of preparation by Mickey Marotti and the team to get ready before he hands the keys over to Ryan Day and his coaching staff, and they begin training camp. So right now is a pretty tough time of the year for the Bucs because they're at the final stages, the heaviest volume of conditioning, and then Mick kind of tapers it down a little bit and hands the keys to Ryan, so they're ready to rock. So with that being said, again, as always, we appreciate you guys. If you guys are listening to this or watching this on YouTube, Spreaker, please leave us a like on Spreaker or iTunes. Please leave us a 5-star review. Those make huge differences in the ability for people to find the podcast and how much it gets promoted. Comment on maybe a player that you're looking forward to hearing about early in training camp, seeing if they could win a starting job, maybe a dark horse type candidate. It's been a very competitive summer. Mickey basically got to do what he wanted this summer. It wasn't as ratcheted down as it was last year. I think that the Michigan loss had a lot to do with that. So with that being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend, Nevada. Nevada, how are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Doing great. It's exciting time of year. Getting ready for the Buckeyes to get going. I know they're getting ready to end summer conditioning. I'm sure they'll be more than eager to have that happen and get back to playing some football.
Yeah, and we'll get to that in a second, but we had humongous news on Buckeye Scoop yesterday. Bill the Bank Greene confirmed he is going to be our lead recruiting analyst. Slight promotion for him, long-term contract engaged. Your thoughts on locking up Bill the Bank Greene with Buckeye Scoop for basically, the rest of his writing career?
It's great. Bill and I have been together for 20 years. It's just great being with him, and great to know that he's going to be heading up the recruiting and inside information stuff here alongside us for years to come. And we got some great things planned at Buckeye Scoop. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're just trying to get back to making the message boards fun again. Too many people take this stuff way too seriously. And a lot of those people are on these other boards, and they're really they seem to be having problems with having fun on the board. And I'll just say, hey, have some fun. Life's short. Ohio State football's right around the corner, and good times are ahead. So enjoy.
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm excited for training camp to start because that's when we really earn our keep and getting inside information on what's going on inside the team during training camp. I think Bill Greene is the best recruiting guy out there for Ohio State football. I think he has a fantastic style. Nevada, talk a little bit about some of the content we can expect from the Thursday chats to our podcast array. Some stuff maybe with the three of us, maybe just you and Bill. Talk a little bit about that for people that might not be subscribing to Buckeye Scoop and give them the reasons why they need to subscribe.
Yeah, well, every Thursday is kind of an iconic all-day chat with Bill, where Bill kind of has every topic's kind of on the table. We're doing some interesting podcasting. We're have tons and tons of inside information regarding the team. Who's showing up. Who's had a big summer. Who's making a movement in the weight room, in the film room. Who's making a room on making a move on the practice field. So when the time comes to kick the football off, you're the most knowledgeable Ohio State fan of anybody because stuff that happens before it's going to happen. And this year's going to be a great year for Ohio State. I just really have a feeling this is going to be a big year. Last year we were trying to do it with a quarterback who'd really never thrown a pass before and a running back who'd never carried the ball. And now we've got those guys are grizzled veterans and potential All-American, top of the draft types of guys. And you got Jim Knowles calling the defense. And I could not be more excited about a coordinator than Jim Knowles. I think he'll have the same impact on the Ohio State defense that Walt Harris had on the Ohio State offense way back when. And I think it's going to be profound. I think it's going to be readily apparent to everybody that there's a new sheriff in town. And I can't wait to see it.
So with Jim Knowles being in town, what do you think is his biggest strength that he will bring to Ohio State's defense? Is it the cohesion? Is it his new scheme? Is it just guys being able to get coached up and lined up properly? In your opinion, based on what you've heard, what is the biggest thing that Jim Knowles brings to Ohio State?
Aggression in game adjustments. I mean, he just has a natural feel for the game, and he's a mad genius. I mean, he can tell what's going on out there. He can, kind of plan 2 or 3 steps ahead in terms of what you're going to try to do to attack him. And he believes in playing an aggressive style. So if you love the Freddie Puckett, silver bullets type of defense, that's what Jim's going to bring. He's going to bring. They're going to be blitzing from all over the field. They're going to be bring pressure, and I think it really reflects the new college football, which is, it's not really trying to win 13-10 anymore. It's try to get those few stops, and if you're not going to get a stop, give up a quick score and get the ball back to your prolific offense, because you're betting that you can outscore the opponent. And I think Knowles plays a perfect style of defense to complement Ryan Day, who's the best offensive mind in college football.
Yeah, and I think something with Jim Knowles that is notable is he's been at places like Duke, like Oklahoma State, places where you're generally out talented, not so much at Oklahoma State, but at Duke, when you line up in the ACC with a bunch of guys that are, going to be working on Wall Street on your defense, it's a lot harder to match up against Florida State, Miami, Clemson, Virginia Tech, some of the teams that you're going to see week in, week out in that conference. And I feel like when you're a guy like Jim Knowles, you really have to be good schematically to have a chance. You really have to coach your guys up to have a chance. And now it's like, you flip it, and now he has the talent and he has the wherewithal that he learned from coaching at a place like Duke and making a productive defense that was really good at Duke, and turning Jeremy Cash into a guy that was a consensus All-American, and a guy that was a former Buckeye that transferred to Duke. And frankly, a lot of us never thought we'd hear from him again, and he turned into a really good player, really productive player for Duke. So I'm always excited when you see guys like that come from, a school that is generally outgunned, and he makes them competitive, because I feel like that's how you really show your coaching chops. It's no different than starting a game of Civilization with a terrible starting point, and you're surrounded by stronger nations, and you somehow win just because you're that good tactically. So, with that being said, I'm going to just scroll over. Summer conditioning is something that's going on every day. It's rough for these guys. These guys are over in the stadium. See Marvin Harrison Jr., see Kai Stokes. You'd never guess that Kai Stokes is only an 18-year-old freshman. Looks fantastic. Jaden Ballard, some of these kids. Nevada, who are a couple of guys that you've heard have been standouts in summer conditioning? And what does summer conditioning mean? I know that it's a place where you can't really win a spot, but it can kind of help your momentum going into training camp. Who are a couple of guys you've heard that have been standing out in summer conditioning?
Well, I mean, I'll pick, one on offense and one on defense. I'd say, Tommy Eichenberg's a guy who's really, I like Tommy a lot, and he's a guy that's really had a great off season. I thought, the second half of the game, the Rose Bowl, was his best performance by far last year. And I think he's been terrific, and I expect big things out of him this year. And offensively, I'm going to go with my man Luke Whippler, a guy that I really think when he leaves here, he's gonna be discussed in the conversations among the best to ever play the center position. And there's been some great centers that have played there at Ohio State. So I think he's been outstanding, stepping up as a war daddy, even as a youngster. And I think he's going to lead that offensive line here to some big things this year.
Yeah, and the thing about Luke is it's interesting because he's assumed the role of one of the leaders of the offense and maybe the leader of the entire offensive line. And he's only a redshirt sophomore, which is, fairly young to be considered the leader of a group. But, when you have some guys like Nick Petit-Frere that declare early, you've got a pretty young room in terms of both maturity and eligibility. Luke's a guy that, he acts much older than he actually is. He acts more like a senior than a redshirt sophomore. He acts like he has 40 starts instead of, 12 or whatever he was able to manage last year, 13. And I think you're right. And the thing I love about him playing center and playing, the apex position on the offense is I think that he's a fantastic specimen in the weight room. Like, he is a very heavy squatter. very strong guy. And the best centers I played with were really heavy squatters, guys like Nick Mangold. I didn't play with Charles Bentley, but he was a fantastic strength guy. Corey Lindsley was just absolutely freakishly strong, and I really think that helps anchor the middle of your offensive line when these guys can anchor down stop bull rushes, get movement at the point versus some of the better nose guards that you'll see. And I think Luke can do all of that. In terms of Tommy, obviously, I think that he's a guy that Jim Knowles is going to lean on to lead that defense. He's a St. Ignatius guy, so he's obviously very intelligent, and I think that he's going to be a catalyst on this defense. I think that the guys that have put in the work through spring, through summer to really know the defense cold, since it's a new system, are going to shine early in camp, and I think that that's going to give them enough of a lead to clinch starting spots, within the first couple of weeks of camp. So, with that being said, we got about 2 weeks to go. Tell me a couple of your maybe a few of your favorite training camp stories / nuggets that you've gotten over the last 5-10 years. Maybe some guys that had great camps and then they ended up being stars, or maybe even tell me some stories about some guys that you heard were stars in camp and maybe it took them a little bit of time to go. Because I always go back and think of Trey Sermon, who was a guy that obviously we were exceptionally high on a couple years ago, and then he didn't play, and turns out he was actually really, really good, and for some reason he was the backup all season. But talk about a couple of those, and some guys that maybe you heard were great and they ended up being great, and some guys that maybe came on later in the season.
Well, Trey is obviously one of my favorite ones, just because I took so much garbage from people about Trey Sermon when I was kind of banging the drum on him, and for the guy to go on to be one of the all-time, the all-time great performers at Ohio State in terms of that back-to-back type of setups there was something that we'd never seen before, and for him to break Eddie's, or he broke the single game record from Eddie George, and he's one of my favorite kids. Obviously I've told the story about Torrance Gibson, many times, but he's one of my all-time favorite guys that we never got to see at Ohio State, and I only wish we could have seen a little bit more. On the current team, you've got guys that are, I think that are just ready to break out and ready to to make some things happen. And the more that I see guys on the offensive line, I see some of the young guys on the offensive line, or see some of the veterans like Matt Jones or Paris Johnson. I think the offensive line really this year is going to be one of the big surprises for Ohio State. I think Justin Fry is really pushing these guys to new heights. I think they're going to surprise people in terms of. I think Ohio State, Justin's saying he's going to just line up and run it. Even when the team expects them to run it, I think they're going to be passing more, even in short. They're going to pass when they think you're going to run, and they're going to run when you think you're going to pass. And I think it's going to make the Ohio State offense even more diverse. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and I think what Justin said is probably more like his first initial press conference type of bluster more than actuality. I mean, it would be akin to a pitcher saying, I'm just going to throw my fastball as hard as I can and throw it past you, but I'm never going to throw any off-speed stuff or, a curveball. I'm just going to throw as hard as I can. And eventually, like when you run into a good team, they're going to knock that out of the park. So I think that was just something to help win the press conference. But in reality, I think that, diversifying the running game is something that we can get much better at compared to where we were last year, just in terms of making it harder for us to defend, maybe shake up some of our tendencies. It really, some, as you mentioned last year in some nuggets, were literally 100% of the time we're in the pistol, we're running the ball. So that's not really that hard to defend once some GA picks that out. But that being said, another guy that I was thinking of that was right at the top of my head when talking about training camp was last year when you were really beating the tar out of the drum for Travion Henderson, and then we get to the first game and he doesn't play barely at all, but he does get 3 carries, or he gets 3 touches, and one was a 77-yard touchdown after you're saying he was the next Saquon, and you took some grief for that. Then ends up being the best freshman running back we've ever had. So, any closing thoughts, Nevada? We got a couple weeks left. Camp's kicking off. Why do people need to get on the Scoop? The Scoop is really on the up and up now, but talk a little bit about what we got going on and the direction that we're heading.
Well, I think it's an exciting time. You know, when you want to know what's going on with this team, I think this is everybody talks about their team being angry, but I think this is a team that really has gone to the coaches and asked for the coaches to be harder on them all summer, all in the off season. I think they lost a little bit of toughness. They're coming back as a tougher group, and I think for people from the outside, you're gonna want to be following this team closely because I think this team's destined for greatness, and it's going to be a big year. It's going to be a big year for Ohio State. It's going to be a big year in the Scoop, and we'd love to have you be part of it.
I appreciate you, brother. Well, we're gonna lock this one up. I love everything that's going on the Scoop. Our board has absolutely been on fire. We're growing. We have camp in 2 weeks. Obviously, if there's ever a time that you'd want to sign up, it's right now. Training camp is starting. You guys want to know what's going on inside the huddle, what's going on inside the Woody Hayes. That is what we are great at. We are great at delivering that information for you guys, and we have never been better at it than we are right now. Obviously, between Nevada and Bill Greene, their sources are impeccable. This is going to be a fantastic run through the season. So, if you want to be a part of the number one community in Ohio State sports for inside information, join BuckeyeScoop.com. I appreciate you guys. Again, our community is fantastic, very welcoming, exceptional people. I'm just so excited about the direction we're headed. So, with that being said, thank you, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. Appreciate everything you do. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday and go Bucks.